Hi friends, hello, happy Friday. Welcome to Craft Your Joy Live. I'm Lisa Hetrick. I'm so excited to be here today. I have a really fun card project we're going to share today and a fun watercolor technique today that adds a little salt to our project. So it's going to be super, super fun. I see people popping in. Hi, Cherie. Hi, Sue. Hi, Laura. Wendy's changing out of her PJs. She said, Linda from Wisconsin. Kathy. Lots of friends. Rhonda. People popping in. Catherine's here. Jesse. Just so excited to see everyone. Okay. So I have today's card is a little lovey, a little Valentine-y, but that wasn't my initial intention. I have a really fun story about it because I painted something and it inspired today's card. So if this is your first time joining me live, hello and welcome. I'm so excited. I think I'm also streaming on Facebook. I don't know. It's supposed to, but we'll see, right? Either way, if you have questions along the way, pop them in the comments and I will answer them along the way. I've got them over on this screen, so if you do see me kind of shift my gaze a little bit to the left, that's the reason. Okay. All right, friends, we're going to get started because we've got a washy watercolor technique today. I've got a masking technique that I'm going to be doing with die cuts, and I'm just kind of playing around with a lot of botanicals from two of my stamp sets. So let's go ahead and head to the down camera and talk about what we're gonna do today. Hello. Hi, Diane. Hi, Teresa. Hi, Heidi. Okay, this is the project that we're gonna make today, and I am excited to share it. So we're going to do a masking technique. We've got you see a lot of texture happening over here and a little bit of washy watercolor happening. Now, this card looks a little bit different, doesn't it, than most of the cards that I've done in the past. This card is an oversized card. So let's get started with talking about that size. This is an A7 size. The measurements for this size are down in the description. I put them in right before I went live. So I've got the card base measurements and I have the measurements for the Innocent Pink cardstock, which looks like I kind of folded that a little bit wonky, but we'll go ahead and fix that along the way. So those are down in the description. So I am using, we'll start off with the cardstocks that I'm using. I am using Innocent Pink heavy base cardstock from Gina K Designs. And I'm also using Strathmore Ready Cut watercolor. Now, everyone, you always see me use this paper for paper crafting projects. It's 100% cotton. It's cold press. I love using it for our paper crafting projects. Again, all of the supplies that I've shared are down below in the description. I did get them in the description before we went live. Okay, now I've got, let me put this over here. I've got some masking magic. This stuff is amazing. It's from Gina K Designs. So this is going to give me the mask. We're going to go through a mask process to create this heart shape and to get that reverse. So I'm going to be stamping inside and doing watercolor on the outside of that shape. So I'm using masking magic to do that. Now, how I did that is I took a sheet of the masking magic, okay, and I cut it to the size of my card base. I used the heart die from the master layout set, and I made a cut right here and just kind of cut that piece. So I ended up getting the positive and the negative. So the positive and the negative in masking magic. And we're going to be using both, and I'm going to show you how so that we can do our watercolor technique today. All right, I'm going to pop this over here. I'm going to bring in the stamp sets. They're also listed down below in the description. The mashup today is Wildflowers and Weeds and Beautiful Moments. I'm using the long stemmed botanicals from Beautiful Moments. I'm using the paper. I just love this stamp. This paper like peony. And from Wildflowers and Weeds, I'm using some of the lavender bits, the leafery, just some of the botanical bits from this set. I was thinking about using that big pansy, but I'm not ready to do pansies yet. It's still a little wintry out. But we are going to do the little viola. I'm using the viola that's open line and the silhouette version. So we are using both, and I've got the coordinating dies for both of these sets. Here's the sentiment that I'm using. Let's put that up against a little bit of white so that you can see it, or pink. So here's the sentiment set that I'm using. It's listed in the description. I'm using this I love you because I just love that, how it trails off. Love it. Okay. Now, I have some unusual supplies that I'm going to be sharing today. So I've got all my stamps here, and we'll talk about the stamps as we go. And the inks are listed down below in the description, but I'm using Wild Dandelion, Passionate Pink, and Innocent Pink. And then I'm using Obsidian for our sentiment, Tranquil Teal, and Grass Green. Those are our colors that we're going to be using today. And I've got some water for our watercoloring. I've got my some sequins and embellishments, and the little pokey picker, some glue, all those things. But here is our little magical supply today. This is some Celtic sea salt. Okay, we are going to do a technique in watercolor today that is called salting. And what the end result of it is, it creates a lot of extra texture in our card project. I'm going to bring this in. This is a big flutter from my butterflies class and flutters class over on the Craft Your Joy classroom. But salting and watercolor kind of creates this oxidized kind of texture-based technique. We're going to talk about that today, continuing on with our watercolor chat with techniques, and also continuing on with, I'm going to tell you a little story. So over the weekend, last Friday, I moved one thing in my office and decided I was in my studio and decided I was going to do a huge purge. So as a result of that, and believe me, I regretted it the second I started to clean because everything got imploded. But as it got put back together by Sunday, but it took a while, and I purged and I got rid of some things. But I was going through some of my sketchbooks and I found this painting that I did. And I was like, oh, I really, really like this. And I put a little X there, and I'm not sure why, but evidently when I did put the X there, I put it there for a reason. Maybe I want to scan it, make it a print for my shop or something, but I don't know. But I was like, oh, I really like this. And this is what inspired this week's card projects. So I love that. I love when I can go through a sketchbook that I haven't looked at in a while, kind of had forgotten about it, and it inspired the project for today. And also, as I was going through some supplies, I came across, friends, I have a lot of watercolor palettes. If you've taken my Watercolor Wonderland class, I've shared them all in that class. But in the last couple tutorials, I have been sharing like art supplies that are a little bit more budget friendly, especially watercolor sets that are more budget friendly. I have a range of watercolor sets from what they would call artist grade sets to high end artist sets. You know what? Either or. They all do something a little bit different. But I came across this set of Cotman watercolors, and I was like, oh, why haven't I played with these in a while? I've swatched them out. Look at those colors. They're super, super vibrant. We're going to be using pink and a couple of the other colors from here. It's a really nice balanced set. The Cotmans I've struggled with in the past, so that's probably why I haven't played with them. But I was like, you know what? I'm going get them back out and play. So we're going to use them today in the tutorial. And I just wanted to show you. I swatched them out because it had been a while since I've played with them. And look at that vibrancy. I know I talk about the Paul Rubens watercolors a lot, and I talk about lots of other different watercolors, but the Cotman, don't discount the Cotman watercolors. They're not my super favorite, or they haven't been in the past, but giving them another go. Look at I painted that with them. Hello. That's pretty nice. And just giving them another play, I just really find them super, super vibrant and like fun for my paper crafting projects. So, Cotman watercolors, just another budget-friendly option. I will tell you that if you go to a big box store, like a Michael's or Hobby Lobby or those kind of stores, they overprice the Cotman set significantly. Like this set or the smaller set of 12 will be like 30 or 40 bucks. That's not really like what it costs. You can find it on Amazon or Dick Blick, sometimes but $25 and under. So just a quick tip. All right. I've rambled enough about watercolor. Again, here's our inspiration. Oh! And we're going to use our stamps and kind of just recreate this look. Super fun. Gloria said we put an X to show the front of our watercolor paper. Yeah, good point. Very good point. Very good point. Okay, we're going to get started. So here's our card. I'm going to move that to the side. We're going to get started. Here is my watercolor paper. And I'm going to get started by taking my masking magic. Now, if you came in a little bit late, no worries. I'm using Gina K Designs Masking Magic. I used the heart from the Master Layouts die set. And I've got that linked in the description. And I've cut this out of the Masking Magic. So I have the negative and I have the positive version of this. And we're going to be using both. I'm going to open. What I love about this Masking Magic is A, you can reuse it. And I would have reused the one I did to make the other card had I not ripped it. Which is pretty typical of me. I ripped it. So the Masking Magic has like this low tack feeling to it. So you're able to apply it to your cardstock and then pull it back up and use it and reuse it. So I'm going to lay this down over top of this layer and just try to get it lined up as best as I can. Ooh, I got a piece of salt underneath there right out of the gate. A little boogery piece of salt. Okay. I see that some of you said that you can relate. So yes, when I was redoing the office over the weekend, I literally, Friday night, I don't know what I was thinking. 9 o'clock at night, I decided to make this big change. And I'm like, I instantly regretted it, but it had to be done. So, all right, we're going to get started. I'm going to start with applying, getting some of the leafery around this heart. So I'm using, let's find what I did with the leafery. Here it is. I'm using 2 pieces of leafery from the Wildflowers and Weeds set. I've got an open line piece and I have a solid. Now in almost every one of my stamp sets, I have lots of leafery. So remember, leafery, botanicals, anything you have in your stash can work for this technique. I've got my grass green and I'm going to ink up this stamp and I'm just going to start to stamp a few around the edge here. And some of it is going to show up inside the heart and some of it is going to end up on the mask. And that's okay. I'm kind of like intentionally positioning where I want that leafery to show up because it won't show up on this side. So I'm making sure all of my botanicals and my leafery go on the inside. And that's going to help me create that masked look that I'm going for. Oh, I love this. Now, masking, I don't always do this technique, but it's just fun because you really do get to show just portions of your stamp and give your cards a little bit of a different look. Okay, I'm going to come around here. Now, a lot of things are going to get covered up here, so I'm not like super concerned. but I am going to come around here. I'll leave that open a little bit to start. I've got that little bit showing up. Kind of come and get that little bit of overlapping. I'm going to come around the top here. That flower is going to go there eventually, so I'm not like super concerned about the way that looks. I really wish I would have nested that a little bit better, but that's okay. I think I'm going to leave this the way it is. Not going to overdo it. Now I'm going to come in. I want to have my bigger botanical piece. This is from the Beautiful Moments. So a nice little contrast to some of these pieces right here. I'm going to turn this and I'm going to come in over that top. Now, I did this on my other set. I kind of mashed it out a little bit too hard and I didn't get a good clear impression, but that's okay. I'm just going to take a little bit of water and kind of activate that grass green. Just kind of nudge it a little bit. Just kind of nudge it and fill it in. And I'm not too worried about the rest of it because we've got this like big botanical hot mess sort of, right? Kind of fun. All right, I'm going to come in now from this side and just kind of put in some of my bigger botanical pieces. I'm going to come in with a little bit of innocent pink. Let's close this up. I have a habit of getting my hands in things. I'm going to put a little innocent pink here and a little bit of wild dandelion going in that direction. So let's go ahead and just kind of come in like this. And I'm overlapping. I rocked that a little bit just to kind of get that feel. Bringing in this large botanical piece. And I'm going to do a little bit of a variation with this one. I've got the grass green and I have the wild dandelion. I'm going to just come in and ink up that top in that wild dandelion and ink up just this little bit of the bottom in the grass green. And I'm going to come in and just kind of nest that up in this area. Let me turn this so I can get a good impression. So I've got like this movement going. It looks like a hot mess and it could feel a little bit scary, but that's okay. It's going to come together. I promise. You're going to dig it because I dig it. Okay. All right. I'm going to come around here. I'm going to add a little bit more leafery. What do I want to add? Yeah, I'm going to come in with the lavender, some of the lavender bits, and start building up those pinks. So I'm going to come in with a little bit of a lavender bit right here. Just kind of nest it in right there. It's going to overlap. And then I'm going to start to come around this edge with some of the flowers. So here's the violas. So there isn't like a super rhyme or reason to this, other than I'm just trying to get that feeling of a lot of botanicals happening here and just a lot of movement and just building up my layers of color. It's just kind of fun. Random, yes, a little bit, but that's okay. Laura just said, can't wait to give this a go. It's beautiful. Yes. Here's the other thing about it. I'm going to turn this so that we get those 3 petals. Get that solid going right there. And again, because I'm working on watercolor and that doesn't come out like super solid, I'm just going to go in with a real light touch with my brush and move that passionate pink around. Now, I could have used the Misty, you know, the stamp positioner, and I would have gotten a more solid. But remember, I'm working with my watercolor paper, so it's thirsty. It wants more ink. It wants more. So the best way when you get an image that isn't giving you a good solid impression is to just get a little tiny bit of water on your brush and make it happen. Just blend it out. That's super fun. Love that. Okay. Now I'm going to, let's see what other botanicals I want to put in there. I've got this really fun little botanical piece. It's a little piece of lavender. And I really like it because it reminds me a lot of the way I paint these kinds of things. Little tiny texture pieces that look like little florals. But we're going to come in. That's going to get covered up, so I'm not going to do that there. I'm going to turn this here. I'm going to do a little one like right there. And I'm going to do these in threes. I'm going to turn this around and do one right here. Oh, love that. So see how random this is? I'm going to put, let's see, where do I want to put that? I'm going to put it here, but I think it's going to get covered up. So, Wendy just says, oh, Wendy just shared that she's making wedding invitations for a friend, 25 different cards. Her brain envisions something like this. Yes! Oh, that would be so pretty. That would be beautiful for a wedding card. All right, I'm going to put a little more whimsy in here. Get a little touch of whimsy. I've got this super cute little stamp. It's a lot of fun, this layering. Just remember when you're doing the layers, you're kind of just working from the bottom up, right? That didn't look so good, but that's okay. I'm going to flip this around. I'm going to add this little baby right there. And you're just kind of adding layers with coordinating colors. So light pink, a darker pink, greens, and then yellows. Yellow is always a great pop of color for your stamped projects. Love it. Okay. Now, I think I got enough here because I also am going to teach you a little technique for using your paintbrush and drawing in some hearts. Now I'm going to take the mask off and try not to rip it because I can use this mask again. So I will put it with the stamp set and I can use it again, or I might just put it with the die so that I can use it again. Now, love it. You could just leave it be like this if you wanted to, but we're not going to do that. Or you could take your die, right? You could take your die and you could die cut it out if you wanted to, but we're not going to do that. But just some options, right? Just some options. Now, I've got the heart piece. We're going to take the Masking Magic backing off. Oh, boogers. Look at that. I've got a little bit of green on there, but that's okay. We're going to lay this down over top. And just don't be too worried. Like you're just trying to cover it up. You can kind of still see it underneath. I probably want to bring that down just a smidge. Just covering this up here because we're going to do our watercolor technique around it. Okay. Now we're going to get washy. We're going to get washy. You could use your dye inks if you want to, but they're not going to react as well to salt. So grab your watercolor, grab a pink or your favorite color. I'm going to take and put quite a bit down on my mat here. So I'm going to do a bunch of passes in that. This is Permanent Rose. This set of Cotman watercolors is from Winsor Newton. I do like Winsor Newton. They're a little pricey though. The professional line's a little pricey. But I do love the vibrancy of it. Now, the only difference between the Cotman professional line and the Winsor Newton professional line and the Cotman is that they use a little bit less pigment in their colors. So that ends up, helping them, allowing them to drop the price on the cotton a little bit. But I still think that they're pretty vibrant and very useful. Okay, Gloria just shared, using the wet brush to move the dye ink on the flower after using an acrylic block is my tip of the day. Cool. I love giving tips of the day. And you're right. And she's ready to dive in now. That's so cool. Very cool. Cheryl just shared, if you keep the full sheet on and then lay in the heart, when you pull off, yes. I'm going to share that comment so everybody can read it. Cheryl just shared, if you keep the full sheet on, then lay in the heart, and then pull off the masking magic, the heart is perfectly placed. Brilliant. Absolutely brilliant. And I wish I would have done that, but I didn't. But thanks for that tip, Cheryl. I'm going to do that next time. Okay. Now, we're going to do a washy-washy technique. I'm going to just start getting my paper wet on the outer edge here. And you can see that it's super random. And my water is kind of already tinged a little bit pink. So it's kind of helping me see where I'm going with here. Let's move that watercolor set out of the way. Kind of see where I'm going, and hopefully you can see it too. You can see the kind of water. Now this technique is called wet into wet. My brush is wet. I'm wetting the paper. We're going to be dropping pigment into the wet area. I do wet into wet a lot. This is my favorite technique for washy-washy watercolor. Now I'm working a little bit fast because this is a thirsty paper, because it's 100% cotton and it wants to just drink it up. Now I'm going to start dropping in this permanent rose, and I'm going to coax it around a little bit. One of the things about the Winsor Newton brand of watercolor is that it usually stays where you put it. Every watercolor brand is different, and I know many of you have heard me say that many times. Every watercolor brand is different. Some whoosh when they hit the water. This is whooshing a little bit. Some stay and give you the opportunity to manipulate it. What I love about this particular brand, what I love about all watercolors is just the fun of it and how vibrant they can be. Permanent Rose is like one of my favorite colors from Winsor Newton. Now, I've kind of hit the edge a little bit. I'm kind of hoping I didn't go up underneath the mask, but if I did, oh well. It's going to add to the washiness of it. And that's okay. If you were determined to make sure that you didn't get any water up underneath the mask, you could cut that heart out in a piece of acetate. That might work a little bit better. But yeah. Okay. I'm just going to pop a little bit more on here. I'm concentrating this color. This is loose and wild and free. And I love it. And I know it might feel intimidating because watercolor can sometimes feel a little wild and free and loose, and it kind of does its own thing. But look at that! Look at that vibrancy. Get really excited. I'm going to take this off my glass mat here so I don't end up getting my hand in it. Now, I'm going to go in and take my Celtic sea salt. Now, for salting, and I know I'm going to get asked this question, can I use table salt? You can, but your granulations are going to be a little bit more fine and not as chunky. You can use Himalayan salt. You can use any kind of chunky salt that you find in your kitchen. And I'm just dropping it in, and you can see that it's like whoosh. It's sort of beginning its little oxidizing process. Oxidizing. I wonder if that's a word. I don't know, or did I just make that word up? Probably. Okay. Now I'm gonna let this sit for a minute, and I'm gonna let it dry. I'm going to move it out of the way. I've got that little puddle of water there. If you get puddles of water that you don't like, just take a little bit of your kitchen towel and just touch the tip of it, and it just acts like a little wick. Look at that. It just comes right up. Oh, I'm digging it. I'm digging this. I'm going to move this over just a smidge to let this dry. I'm going to let that dry. Okay. Now, I've got a couple things that we need to stamp and cut out and do a little bit of watercoloring for our big honkin' flower embellishment. Now, this is the flower from Beautiful Moments. It has a coordinating die. I'm not going to use that coordinating die today, and I'll share why. If you watched last week, I did the same technique. I've got Tranquil Teal here. I'm going to ink up the stamp. I'm going to stamp it down. Yes! Look, I got a little bit of salt going underneath there. Let's move that. I'm going to ink up the stamp again and turn it so that I add an additional layer of petals to the flower. So I get more petals and I get more texture and dimension. And now I'm going to go in and kind of activate, do a little bit of washy watercoloring. I'm activating the ink with just a little tiny bit of water and just kind of pulling it out. And then we're going to get that variegation of the darker teal in the center. Then we're going to pull it out to the outer edges so that it just kind of fades out. I got a little bit too much water on my brush. So that it just kind of fades from dark to light. And I'm coming out. I did this technique last week, and I liked it so much we're doing it again. I like it. I love the way you get that variation of dark to light, and you get a little bit of white going from the paper. I'm going to come in. I want to add a little bit of darkness back to the center. Let's see. I'm going to come in with a little bit of Prussian blue. Just take a little bit of that color, and I'm going to drop that in. I could do that with ink. I see everybody's chatting a little bit about salt. Kathy just shared she couldn't figure out why there was a container of salt in her watercolor drawer. Same. Totally get it. In my purge, I was like, oh, there's the salt I've been looking for. Kind of fun. Okay, just added a little bit of that Prussian blue, which is like a navy blue watercolor, to the center. Loving it, digging it. Okay, gonna let that dry a little bit. This still is drying over here. We are gonna heat set it. Just kind of hit it with the heat tool to get it just to kind of activate it a little bit more. But before we do that, I need to stamp 2 of our embellishments. My open leafery. Let's find a block. Yep, here we go. It's a block right here. Got my grass green. I need to clean these stamps. They feel a little bit janky. Catherine just shared a really great tip. Okay, Catherine, she said, I have finally learned not to draw the color out to the edge of the image so it doesn't travel past the lines as it dries. You don't have to draw it out. The nice thing about not drawing it out is that you get that texture, you get a little look of texture and dimension. You also have that white from the paper coming through. So you've got the tranquil teal, you've got the white, and you've got a little wash of the color. So it gives it a little bit of like a paper thin look and feel. And that's kind of what petals are. They're a little bit paper thinny. So it's kind of fun. All right, I'm going to stamp this one down. All right, I actually got a good impression with that. And I'm going to stamp this one down. And we're going to die cut those 2 with the coordinating dies I did that off camera, so I'm going to take, it's a great tip, Catherine. Everybody's sharing that that's such a great tip. Now, I'm going to just cut that away. I did do this off camera just so we could save a little bit of time. So you see I cut them out with the coordinating dies that coordinate with the set. Love it. Okay. I'll use those for another card project. Now, this is still a little bit wet. A little tiny bit wet. Cheryl just asked, was that kosher salt you used? Nope. This, you can use kosher salt. This is Celtic sea salt. I actually use this kind of salt when I bake bread. So I just grabbed some, put it in this little glass container from the Pampered Chef, apparently, and just keep it in my studio space so I don't lose it or run back to the kitchen for more. All right, I'm just going to take my heat tool. It's going to get a little loud for a second and just kind of zap this. Just because I want to cut this out. I'm going to hand cut this out. Instead of die cutting, could use the die cut if I wanted to, the coordinating die. Look at that color. Love that. Love that. Okay. But I'm going to hand cut this. And I did the same thing on the last tutorial. When I fussy cut things, you can see I don't move the scissors. I actually move the paper. So this is kind of fun. So while I'm cutting this, I'm going to talk about the purge of the office. So what happened is I needed to, two things happened. One, I tripped over studio lights and I ran into the door in the trip. So I was like, oh boy, it's time. Things have just kind of amassed and it's time to clean up. The second thing was that I needed to put away quite a bit of supplies of product for my online shop. So that became the catalyst for me to say, hey, you know what I need? A new bookshelf. Which, you know, everybody in this household just kind of stared at me blank, like, what? And I had a bookshelf in the basement, like in storage, that I used to have in here. So I asked my son to bring it up. He brings it up. He just kind of looks at me with a kind of a half eye roll thinking, oh boy, what's going to happen here? And that's what started it. And that all happened at 9 o'clock on Friday last night. 9 o'clock Friday last week. Loving this. So you can see I've got that fussy cut around that edge. And I instantly regretted it because it just made me go into like full, gotta clean everything mode, gotta go through everything mode, which was a good thing. But I was like, oh, I really kind of messed myself up. Oh, Laura just shared. This is great. Laura, I'm going to share a comment. Let me click on that. This would be a good galentine. Yes. Gina did a video the other day about galentines for, giving your girlfriends cards. And you know what? This is perfect. I think I'm going to give it to my friend Carla. I'm supposed to have a late dinner with her on Monday. Okay, now, to get the real hardcore salty light texture, you're going to want to let this dry on its own. But hey, we don't always have time for that, to let it dry on its own. So you can also just heat set it, but I want to show you some of the things that are happening. So the salt starts to react with the pigment and it oxidizes. It gives you that whooshy kind of oxidized look. We're going to go in with our heat tool. Cheryl just said, Lisa, just one less room for spring cleaning. Yes, you're right. Now I just got to try to keep it clean, which, sometimes isn't in my nature. But let's do this. Okay, got my heat tool. Now what I'm doing is I'm going in and I'm just hitting this hard and drying that salt anywhere that it's super wet. I'm just drying that salt right on. So I am just kind of activating this process quicker by drying the pieces, but as a result, you can see that my mask is starting to curl up, but that's okay. I'm coming around. I think I got a good hit of this. All right. Hopefully that wasn't too loud, but I didn't want to jump off camera to do that. I wanted you to be able to see it. Okay. Yes. Kathy just said it looks like frost. It kind of does. Love that. Now what we're going to do is I'm just going to gently just kind of rub my finger over it to see if it's still wet, and it kind of is. So I'm going to go over those spots that seem like they're still wet. Let's see what happens. Also, that forced heat does kind of amplify and oxidize it a little bit more. It's still a little bit wet, but that's okay. You could take a brush. This is a clean brush, and I could just kind of, it's kind of crunchy. Just kind of just wipe it off. Oh, this spot is like super dry and super crunchy. I'm gonna have to go, you can hear it crunching. And that's kind of what would happen if you let it dry like overnight or for a couple hours. It would get like super crunchy, but you can see that texture is amazing. Okay, let's go with my brush. I shouldn't be doing this with my good watercolor brush, but I am. There's a lot of I shouldn't be's, but I do anyway, because we're having fun, friends. This is art. This is paper crafting. Yeah. Use the supplies. Have fun. No, I don't respond very well to shouldn'ts. I'm sure most of you feel the same. All right, so we've got a lot of the salts here. Let's go ahead. Now, you could reuse the salt. You could take it and pop it back in because it's still good. Even though it's colored, it's okay. You can pop it back in and use it. And use it again. All right. I'm going to take that off, and there's our reveal. Woohoo! Cheryl just said, can the salt hurt the watercolor brush? Well, technically, yes. If I would have like continued to scrape over it with intensity over time, and I kept doing it, it could just make the watercolor brush splay a little bit. So, but just for that half a second that I did it, it's not going to hurt it. I'm going to dry that little area right there. Ugh, I am digging this. This one looks even better than my sample. And I think it's because I let it dry on its own a little bit more. You can hear it's still a little bit crunchy. I'll have to vacuum the floor. But look at that texture. There's little bits of salt that are kind of embedded in there. You could leave it, and I'm going to leave it. You could tap off to see what kind of wants to come off, if anything. And if it doesn't want to come off, it's going to stay. All right. I am loving the way this looks. And look at that big whoosh right there. Just love it. Okay. Now, we're going to go ahead and assemble the card. So you see why this card needed to be a little bit bigger than the other. This card is a little bit wonky because I've scored it a little bit wonky, but I'm going to just kind of tidy that up a little bit right here. See if I can fix that. All right. Now I'm going to use Connect Glue. And so think about the salt technique for any project that you're working on where you want that added texture and dimension, look, without any height. Now, as a result of our washy watercoloring, my paper's a little bit bowed. I could iron it. You know, you can mist the back of your paper and you can iron it if you want it to flatten out. You can put it in a book. You could do lots of things. But I'm going to use this Connect Glue. Ironing it is kind of fun because it'll get it nice and super flat. Let's get some of this off. I'm going to open my card base up and flip it over and just kind of eyeball it down. And I'm going to have to give it a second because of, I'm going to close this up and flip it over and just kind of, you can hear the salt crunching. The salt pieces that were in there are kind of crunching. Now, if your hands are inky, you might get a little ink on the back of your card. Looks like I'm doing pretty good by not getting a lot in there. But I got this applied, and I'm liking the way that looks. Oh, just loving this texture. Okay, Catherine just asked a great question. I'm going to pop that up for everybody to see. Can you use craft foam behind a watercolor panel to flatten it out? Yes, you totally can. I just don't happen to have any craft foam, but you could totally use that to help flatten it out. And, you know, give you that like resistance of the surface as you're laying it down. Oh, I'm loving this so much. Okay, now we're going to go ahead and put our pieces in. So see why I didn't add anything here? Because I'm going to put that flower there. That mask did kind of an amazing job of kind of holding my line a little bit. But we're going to add a little more detail then. I'm going to show you how to paint in two things. So I'm going to grab a little bit of foam tape here. Grab a little bit of foam tape and just kind of pop that down on the bottom here. And kind of nest that around. See, that little guy is getting covered up. Oh, well. I like this little petal right here. I kind of like it facing down, so I'm just going to pop that there. Oh my goodness, I really love this card. I'm so excited. Okay, and then we're just going to pop this little thing in here and this little piece of leafery here. What does that add? It just adds a little bit more texture and dimension. That's all. You can pop it up with a little bit of foam tape. I'm just going to take, oops, I need to refill my glue. I'm just going to take a little bit of glue and pop a little bead of glue on the back. Nest that in. The reason why I liked this piece of leafery is kind of, it follows that nice little angle that's happening as we dip in for the heart. And this one does too. This little piece of leafery from Wildflowers and Weeds. I love that set, Wildflowers and Weeds. It's got the pansy in it, and it's got that bicycle like tire spokey thing from the bicycle. All right, digging that. Again, this kind of followed this angle. Now, I like how loose that heart is. I like it. But I'm going to come in and just kind of make some of the lines a little crisper. So I've got, is this my thinnest? Yes. I've got a brush, a nice round brush that comes to, let's put it in the camera so you can see it. Comes to a nice point. Okay. I'm going to just get some of this permanent rose pigment on. And you could skip the step, but I'm just going to come in and just kind of add, just follow the lines and just very gently add a little line here just to kind of crisp. That's not even a word, crispen, but I just made it one to tidy up those edges a little bit. And I'm not so worried about, once I've got it in, I'm going to clean off my brush and I'm just going to lightly touch that line so that it's not so harsh. So I've able to add a little detail to that line. So we've got some emphasis happening, right? It feels like it's popping a little bit, but it's also got a softness to it that is very pleasing. I'm going to come around here. So I'm gently, I'm choked up on the brush. So I've got, you know, kind of like I'm writing with a pencil. Choked up on the brush. I've got the tip here. And I'm just going around the edge and just adding a nice crisp line to this. I'll come around here and kind of crispen. Make that's not a word. I'm just a little bit silly today. Make that line a little more crisp. And now I'm just taking a clean, wet brush and going over that edge that I did and just softening it. So you get the added benefit of it, you know, pulling that emphasis to that heart. I need to do right there. It's got that emphasis. It almost feels like it's got a little bit of a glow to it. It adds a little bit of emphasis to the die cut heart. It separates it from the texture in the background. So it gives it a little bit more of a 3D effect. You can see I'm coming in very lightly. Very, very lightly. You could also do this with a marker if you wanted to. If you really wanted it to have that line that was a little more defined. Soften that up a little bit. I'm going to soften that little booger of color up. Oh my gosh. I'm loving it. Okay, now, the moment of truth is the sentiment, right? Putting the sentiment on. Let me just double check and see if anybody had any questions so far, but no. Okay, I love you is the sentiment. I love the set. It's just so pretty. I love how the sentiment trails off. Love it. Okay, the moment of truth, friends. When we go to put the sentiment on and we go rogue, we don't put this in the misty. I'm just going wild. And I hope I don't booger it up. Right? Many a time I've gotten to the very end with my sentiment and my card base, and I've put my sentiment on and I've boogered it up. But you know what? I could always fix it. Just going to line this up a little bit, eyeball it, and just kind of pop that sentiment right there. I'm going to give it a little bit of a push and a rock. Oh, okay. That little rocking kind of smushed that Y, but I'm kind of digging it because it looks like it's like calligraphy, you know, where you have thick and thin lines. Look at that. Ah, Diane just shared that outline, just finished it. It did. See how it created separation between what's going on inside the heart and what's going on outside the heart. Robbie said she's going wild. Seatbelts, everyone. I know. Seatbelts. I'm kind of digging the way that came out. I rocked the stamp a little bit to achieve that. And I mooshed it. I smooshed it a little bit. All right. Now I'm going to come in with some embellishments, sequins and embellishments. And I've got this little thing here because there's a hole in my bag. And I've gotten these sequins embellishments all over the place. I've got my Gina K Designs, the pick tool. And I'm going to start by putting 3 embellishments right here. I think this is Disco Ball. I think it's called Disco Ball. I have it in the description of what it is. So I'm going to put 3 little blobs of glue, and we're going to put 3 embellishments right in here. Oh, I love this picky tool. Let's see if I can find a big one. So there's, in that set, there's like a small, medium, and large. I'm just going to put them in the center. It gives kind of like that mirrored look to it. Now, because my embellishments are here, I'm going to do like a little trail. So it comes up here and it comes around and then it leads you down to this I love you. So we're going to do, let's get a couple of these out. You can see I'm being very gentle because I still haven't found an embellishment storage solution. Just haven't taken the time to find one. And so I tend to leave everything in the original bags. So I'm going to put a little bead of glue up here, a little one right here kind of close to the heart, pop one right in here. So I'm doing my trail. So I'm trailing down, going to pop right here, and then kind of finish off one down there. Just focusing everything out there. I'm going to put that big one right there. Out there on the right side of the card. Let's pop this right here. And then we'll end with a little bitty one right here on the edge. So it kind of comes out. It's funny, the sequins and embellishments are always the finishing technique that I forget to do at the end. But I'm happy that I remembered to do it today. So, I'm loving the way this looks. Holy smokes! Look at that background. Now let me pull in the original. So you can see, well, the original texture was there too, but not as intense, I feel, as the texture that I was able to pull up here. Look at that one right there. It looks like a little heart. Oh, which reminds me, I want to do a little tiny heart inside here, and I'm going to show you how to do that with your brush. So I'm going to take my round brush, and I've got a small, this is a number 6. Robbie just shared, oh, check diamond art containers. That is what I use. She found them on Amazon. Thank you, Robbie. I'll check them out. All right, I'm going to take a little bit of my permanent rose. Just kind of, my brush is wet, but not sopping wet. So I'm getting quite a bit of pigment on here. And I'm going to show you this little technique. So I'm going to take the brush is completely vertical, and just do a little teardrop to the left. So I'm using the entire belly of the brush, do a little teardrop to the left, do a little teardrop to the right, and yeah, it might be a little bit wonky, but you can even it out. And then you get that cute little heart. You can also do this with your Copic markers or Tombows or any kind of brush pen. You do that little teardrop technique. I'm going to pop a little tiny heart right here. Oh, look what I just found. A little bead of glue. Look, I just had a little moment there where I got distracted. I forgot that little embellishment right there. I saw the bead of glue and he was lonely, and it was just saying, hey, Lisa, you forgot to put my embellishment on there. I'm going to take the tip of my brush and lay it out flat like that. Just kind of get that little teardrop. I'm going to extend that out just a little bit, and then go the other way with it. And then I've got my little wonky heart. Just kind of even it out just a smidge. And I've got my little wonky heart that's just kind of nested up in there. I could do another one. I did 3 on this one. I just kind of went here, here, and here just to add to it. I'm going to leave the 1 because I liked it. I like it the way it looks. Okay. See something I want to fix. Okay, my brush is wet. I'm just going to go ahead and take off some of that color. Last week we did the lifting technique. I'm doing that right now. I'm lifting away some of the intensity of that color. And now it kind of gives the heart a little bit more of a reveal, right? The outer edges of it are darker than the inner. Ah, love it. Okay, here's the final card. Oh, I'm loving the way it looks. I'm loving the way it looks. Love it, love, 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 love. Okay, let's go ahead and and head into our front camera. There we go. Hello, I'm back. All right, that was a super fun card. I really, really enjoyed sharing that with you today. I hope you got a lot of really great watercolor techniques today. Today, it was a little salty. We learned how to use Celtic sea salt or salt with your watercolor to create a little extra texture and dimension with your card project. So super fun. Hope you got a lot of value out of today's tutorial. I'm so grateful that you could all join me. Remember, if you are interested, hop onto my email list and subscribe. It is the #1 way I get information out to everyone as to when I'm going live, when my new Gina K Designs products are launching, when things are happening in my online store and in my online classroom. Also, if you're interested in any of my online classes, head on over to craftyourjoy.com. Many of you are already students in my classroom. You can also head on over there and join my free community. And I have a free course over there too. So just a couple things to share with you today. Again, I'm so grateful you could join me today. I'm sending you into the weekend to craft your joy with a little bit of watercolor that's a little bit salty and fun. And yeah, I hope you really enjoyed this card. It was just a really fun way to kind of do a lovey Valentine galantine card. So super, super fun. Let me check the comments real quick. Everybody's just kind of saying thank you. Sue just shared, I'm going to try to make a few of these for my former coworker. Lovely. You suddenly lost. Oh, wow. That's so sad. I'm so, so sorry, Sue. I'm glad everyone could learn so much today. Again, sending you into the weekend to craft your joy. Please hit like and subscribe to this channel if you please. And also consider subscribing to my email list. I will be coming back live next Friday with a brand new tutorial. And I'm not sure what it's going to be yet, but it'll be a super fun mashup. And there will be watercolor techniques because watercolor is life, right? Anyway, okay, have a great weekend and I'll see you all next time. Thanks so much for joining me.